So welcome once again to yet another episode of Wiki Weekdays with myself, Karl Smallwood, and as always, my co-host, Lucas Holland.
Hello there.
And Lucas, there's no theme for this week, so I think we should just get right into it. But first, get right into it, but first, that makes no sense, does it? We should get right into it, but before that...
Before we just get right into it, we're going to do something else.
Yeah, before we get right into it, we've got to get right into something else, and that is just explaining the format, which is myself and you have scoured the length and breadth of the internet to track down a wiki entry about something that we have a passing familiarity with, just to see what we can find. And you, our lovely audience at home, can decide which wiki won this week in the comments below. But without further ado, Lucas, what wiki have you brought this week for us to pontificate on?
Well, I already know what's won this week, and it's just the fact that you've just got a thing that says Big Boss is hot in the corner of your screen.
Oh, yes. That's from my stream, because we're recording this in Pride Month. And I stream Metal Gear Rising every week, so one of the things I did is after the stream had ended, let's just go through and rank how hot all of the Metal Gear characters are. And it was surprising. The results were surprising and very academic.
They're all just hot as fuck is the answer, basically.
Yeah, but you're also not noticing my water bottle.
Oh, that's nice. I like that water bottle.
It's I love the penguin from Wallace and Gromit. It's the best noise.
I am bringing today a wiki that is discussing a video game, and it's not discussing a brand new video game, but it's one in its series. So I'm going to be talking some Final Fantasy. And I thought,
okay,
what's better Final Fantasy to talk about than the one we both don't really like?
Which is?
There's probably a few on the list. But
okay, so before you reveal what it is, favourite Final Fantasy?
Favourite Final Fantasy is, there's not really much of an answer, because I have a lot of problems with a lot of them, but I also love a lot of the PS1 and PS2 ones. Maybe just Final Fantasy Remake, because I think I have less problems with that game than with other Final Fantasies, but again, it's I'm not quite sure.
It is next to flawless in its execution. For me, it's 10, FX10. I don't like FX2 or FFX2. And then closely followed by Final Fantasy 8. So yeah,
I really like 8. I really like 7 Remake. And then, I really enjoyed watching you play through 10. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, I've not played 10 myself, so I don't know how much I would have enjoyed it not knowing all the crazy bullshit that you knew.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really generally prefer a lot of that kind of PS1-ish era, and that's due to both A, not having played all of the series, but B, because I really like the kind of sci-fi fantasy blend, whereas the straight up fantasy Final Fantasy games I enjoy a little bit less. Or I enjoy the setting a bit less.
Also, it's worth pointing out, people always say it's always the one from their childhood. It's they're not as good as they used to be in regards to most things. And it's well, no, it's because you were young, you were in your formative years, and you had unlimited free time.
Mm-hmm. It's
how many times you go back to a game and go, man, this is a slog. Did I really sit down and play? It's yeah, 'cause you had one game on unlimited free time.
Final Fantasy 13, yeah.
Yeah. So what is it we're talking about today then? Because there's a choice of 20.
Yeah, I figured we'd talk about Final Fantasy 15, because Final Fantasy 15 has one of the more interesting stories in terms of the development of the game.
It is, yes. And I guess just for context, what's your background with Final Fantasy 15?
So I waited the many, many years for them to bring it out, but I played through maybe 10 hours of Final Fantasy 15 Royal. So that was, the kind of definitive edition version of the game that they released later on. And yeah, I just didn't really vibe with the characters very much. And I think, that's normally what gets me through a lot of Final Fantasies is the world and the characters. And it didn't grab me too much. But for example, I played through all of the 13 trilogy because I enjoyed that world and those characters to an extent enough to get me through what I didn't like.
Yeah, and for me, I've got a very different experience with Final Fantasy 15. When I bought it day one, I got it day one on release, and anyone who's actually played Final Fantasy 15 and likes it knows that's a bad time. Yeah. Because Final Fantasy 15, very infamously, was not great on release and got fixed. And one of the things that they fixed is the ability to fast travel. You might think, well,
yeah.
Yeah, so my first experience with Final Fantasy 15 is getting into it, the 2.5 hour long like cutscene to get into like gameplay, get into the car. I don't like the car. I know someone's going to say, oh, it's a road trip with your bros. I don't want to go on a road trip with my bros. Not those bros. All the characters suck ass. Yeah. First thing I do is get out of the car and I say, oh, I'll walk to the next destination. I'll walk, explore, do some grinding, see the world, get to the destination, I'll be a bit leveled up. Get there, thing pops up, you need to be in your car. Okay, can I warp to my car? No, you can't. And someone's going to probably think in their head, no, I played it, you can warp to your car. You couldn't on day one. That was something they added in like, an update because people realise it fucking sucks when your car runs out of fuel and then you can't teleport to it or you can't teleport your car to you. I don't know which it is they added in. So I got there, walked 2 hours through the wilderness and then to continue with the story, had to run back 2 hours along a road to go get my car to drive it at 1 mile an hour because it had no fuel. And I just went, fuck this.
Yeah.
And I've not played it since. And I know someone's going to say, oh, they fixed it in update. I don't care. That initial experience was just so aggressively unfun. It has completely soured my experience.
I guess we have similar experience. I just pushed through a bit further then. But, like, yeah, I never warmed up to the world or the characters at all. And I just got to the point where I was like, I'm actively not enjoying my time around my bros. And just, I don't want to spend more time with them. Like, if they were likable characters, and that's a very subjective thing. I know plenty of people did like them, but I and you, we did not. So, like, you can't change our minds about that. Like, I genuinely found a lot of friction with those characters and didn't enjoy being around them.
Yeah, it felt like the game was trying to tell, like, look how cool they are. The game was trying so hard to make me like them that it made me not like them.
And I do think, a couple of the designs are quite cool. I don't like how similar they all look, but I do think, like, Noctis is a cool looking and cool named Final Fantasy protagonist. But
yeah, he's a very Final Fantasy protagonist looking motherfucker. But they're all dressed in like all black. They're all wearing skinny jeans and black leather vests. And there's some variation, but compare that to, say, like Final Fantasy VII, like Cloud, Barret, and Tifa. It's like your three primary characters. They could not be more different in both,
That goes for what then? The next game, Final Fantasy VIII. That goes for Final Fantasy IX. That goes for Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy 13.
Almost every game, yeah. Like even the very first one, Black Mage, White Mage, Monk, Ninja, or Warrior. Like every game's been defined by each character has a set defined role, and they all just look the same. It just looks like four douchebags driving around in a car.
Yeah, and I think Prompto's got a relatively good design, but I think the other two were like a little bit more generic looking. I think Prompto's the one with the blonder hair, but yeah, the two brunette lads I just thought looked very just bit generic and a bit boring, and also they all look too similar. And
well, they're all wearing. I've got other pictures in front of me now. So the only thing that really distinguishes them, their hair colour. So there's one blonde, one dark hair, one anime hair, and one dirty blonde. And one's wearing a suit, admittedly, but they're all wearing black skinny trousers, huge boots, and a shirt.
Yeah. That looks fine on Noctis, but that shouldn't be the entire party. It's like it's not an interesting, dynamic-looking party. Whereas
you need some visual distinction between them. And I know someone who's like played the game and likes to go, oh no, they are different. They're personality-wise. Like I never got into that because the visuals were so off-putting. Like the first it was with your eyes, and visually they all put me off. They all look like douchebags.
And I want to go back to my point earlier that Noctis is a very good sounding protagonist, and I cannot for the life of me get behind the protagonist name of Clive. I can't do it. Clive.
Wait, who's Clive?
The Final Fantasy 16 is the protagonist is Clive.
That's not a Final Fantasy protagonist name.
It's not.
That's the guy who works on the localization. Who they have to put in the credits.
Clive.
No, that's not real.
That's real.
No, it's not. It's not Clive. Clive. He's called Clive. Wait, what? How is he called Clive? That's such an uncool name.
It's what you're along the sides of like cloud, lightning.
Let's put in Final Fantasy protagonist names. Like this combo breaker of like a protagonist in Clive. Yeah. So let's just go through a list of protagonists, Final Fantasy. I know this is your wiki, but let's just...
No, let's go for it, yeah. This creates a discussion, Karl.
So the first game, Final Fantasy, it was just the Warriors of Light. They had no name. Mm-hmm. You could choose their names.
Yes.
Final Fantasy 2, Firion.
Okay, yeah.
Final Fantasy 3, it depends on the version being played. The 4 Onion Kids or Luneth, depending on which version you're playing. Final Fantasy 14, Cecil.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's a new regular name, right?
Yeah, Final Fantasy 5 is Bart's.
Okay.
Bart's Klauser. 6 is Terra Branford. 7.
Good old Barrett.
Yeah. No, Tifa if you're playing the remake.
That was my life. My life was just as soon as I unlocked the ability to play as Tifa, I never looked back.
Final Fantasy 8, Squall Leonhardt. 9, Zidane. 10, Tidus. And I know some people say it's pronounced Tidus, it's Tidus.
And I believe a lot of them are weather related, so to me the pronunciation of Tidus sounds more correct.
You also have the fact as well that the game revolves entirely around water. Mm-hmm. The name Tidus, the pronunciation is pretty well signpost, isn't it? Tide. Anyway, 11, due to being a massively online multiplayer role-playing game, there is no universal main character.
Same with 14.
12 is Van. 13, your favourite, Lucas.
Good old Lightning, who, has terrible characterization throughout 3 different games as 3 essentially different characters, but very cool design and a cool fucking name.
Yeah, Lightning. And then we have Final Fantasy 15, because obviously there was like all the DLC. That was the other thing as well when I found out. They hacked apart the game to put DLC in, because apparently if you play through the base game without the DLC, characters just fucking disappear. Like they just disappear, and it's like, oh, they were there and they come back with their DLC power up, but before the DLC's in there, it's like, I'm not replaying an RPG with the DLC unlocked. Go fuck yourself. But we have Noctis, Gladiolus, Prompto, Ignis, Ardyn, and then Clive. 'Tis me, 'tis Clive.
Yeah, there's a couple of regular sounding names or irregular sounding normal names. But Clive's just, he's just the guy in your local shop. He's just Clive.
He's just Clive.
I just don't get it. Like, the moment I heard it, I bet you they changed that before release, and they never did. Anyway, let's get into Final Fantasy 15 proper.
Okay, yeah. We've already pissed everybody off who's like, love this game.
Yeah, we've done a good job of getting rid of everybody already. So, Final Fantasy 15 is an open world action role-playing game developed and published by Square Enix. The 15th installment of the Final Fantasy series. It was released on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in 2016, Windows in 2018, and a launch title for Stadia in 2019. Good old Stadia.
When are we covering Stadia on Wiki Weekends?
That needs to be a thing I add to the list, because Stadia's just launch titles were like, 3-year-old games. But the game features an open-world environment and an action-based battle system, incorporating quick switching weapons, elemental magic, and other features such as vehicle travel and camping, but not fast vehicle travel.
I can't believe it wasn't in the base. Like I said, I legit thought, well, there must be a mistake. Clearly, I'm missing. There's no way they didn't anticipate, and that's what annoyed me. Of like, clearly they thought, well, obviously you're gonna want to drive everywhere with your bros. Why would you ever leave your car or go more than 100 feet away from it? It's like, I don't know, because you can't drive your car in the open world, in this open world game.
It's a similar kind of experience where a lot of video games, and the most recent example for me is Tears of the Kingdom, where you can get a horse, but then to go and do certain quests or pick up items and materials off the floor or go and do combat, you have to get off your horse. Yeah. Or if you want to go climb up a mountain, you have to get off your horse. And then, well, where's your horse? Well, now it's down at the bottom of your mountain.
So it's just quicker to just leave your horse.
Well, I might as well just not have the horse then. They then added a DLC to get like a bridle that teleported the horse to you with the whistle, and didn't put that in Tears of the Kingdom as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, the fact that your horse, like if you leave it at the bottom of the mountain, he doesn't just like magically teleport to the top. It's like, no, you have to go to where you left it. It's like, same Final Fantasy 15. Like, it's quicker to just run, jump, and teleport than it is to use your car.
Yeah. But then, as you say, the problem then comes if you need the car.
Which you do to get into some missions. It's like, you must be in your car to start this mission. It's like, why? I've got a sword.
Mm-hmm.
Am I planning on running over the final boss?
I mean, I hope so. I wish. Let us know, is the way that you defeat the final boss in Final Fantasy 15 that you just get into your flying car and just kamikaze into the
If the car float, that wouldn't be a problem, because then I'd be able to get wherever I wanted to.
Well, I do think in one of the launch trailers or something, they showed that the car can grow wings and fly, but that'll be an upgrade that you unlock later.
It'll be DLC.
Potentially. So yeah, so some notable things about, its production here is just developers are Square Enix Business Division 2. Just
That's so
Square
dystopian.
Enix.
The business decision, like, that makes me really feel like there's some creative integrity behind that. Square Enix Business Interest number 2.
And I think as well, they have Square Enix Business Divisions and Square Enix Creative Divisions, and that's where, that's what the developers are named. It's like, I don't trust anyone to be creative when they can't come up with a fucking name for the development studio.
It's like, what's that?
It's similar to Nintendo though. It must be a very Japanese thing of Nintendo's in development stuff is just oh, hang on, I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, but I was thinking, is that like that similar thing where it's the that triangle strategy game that came out and everyone's like, don't change it. Yeah. It's triangle strategy now, fuck you.
Because there was Project Triangle Strategy and Project Octopath Traveler, and both of them just became Triangle Strategy and Octopath Traveler.
Right,
good job, Square Enix.
The most famous one, like Untitled Goose Game.
Oh,
which
yes.
is I love that they never changed it. They just went, you know what, screw it, Untitled Goose Game, let's go.
So that's it. Nintendo Entertainment Planning and Development, and it's just okay, cool. And then you've got other certain ones, but it's just maybe it's just, as I say, more of a Japanese thing where it's just we're just a business and we're just going to name our divisions business divisions. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. But yeah, it was published by Square Enix. Its director is bear with me on pronunciations here, but Hajime Tabata. Producer was Shinji Hashimoto. And then the composer, I always, enjoy this composer of Yoko Shimomura. If you don't know who Yoko Shimomura is, look up their credits because she's incredible.
Is it not Nobuo Uematsu for this one?
No, it's not. No.
I guess I got to look her up then. What's the name again, sorry?
So it's Yoko Shimomura.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, she did Street Fighter 2 soundtrack. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
She's the person who did Street Fighter 2. Okay, I'm done, because I know that she's I didn't recognize the name until I saw, she's the lady who did Street Fighter 2, didn't get credited for it.
And then, Super Mario RPG, Kingdom Hearts, a bunch of them, Final Fantasy related stuff.
We'll do her wiki one day.
Yeah, we will.
We'll do a themed wiki of maybe unsung gaming heroes, and we'll do her and one of these other composers, gaming composers or something.
Just, everyone take a minute to go and appreciate Yoko Shimomura's work. She's amazing. Anyway, we'll go back to, the base of this, where Final Fantasy 15 takes place on the fictional world of Eos, aside from Insomnia, the capital of Lucas.
God,
and
the world
is dominated by the Empire of Niflheim, who seek control of the magic crystal protected by the Lucian royal family. And it's immediately just anime. You start getting into all of just the pronouns that mean absolutely zero things, and that's just that's fantasy, isn't it?
It's just fantasy.
If you don't know, you don't know.
You still use Gil though.
It's never as bad as when Final Fantasy 13's opening lines is about the Fal'Cie and the Seath, and you're like, wait, did I miss something already?
It doesn't even explain that.
That's just the opening.
The opening cutscene evokes imagery of two distinct races that don't exist, they've never talked about, and they expect you to just know what they are.
They talk about it as if it's already a known quantity, and every time I've started Final Fantasy 13 again, I've gone, surely I've missed something. Because I don't know what's happening right now, and we'll explain it later, but they don't tell you that.
It's the visual thing it's the visual equivalent of having 2 pages stuck together and be like, have I missed something here?
Yeah,
but they're not.
And the game's development began in 2006 as a PlayStation 3 spin-off title called Final Fantasy Versus 13. So this was originally in the 13 universe, and it took them so fucking long to get it done. 10 years later, they released it as a new game.
That's just Final Fantasy, though, isn't it? Because it's really weird. What's that thing that got pointed out recently of like Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, and 10 came out within the space of half a decade?
I think it's 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 came out between like 95 and 2001.
It was like, there was like one a year or something like that, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And it's like it took Final Fantasy 16 like 5 years to come out. Like in the space it took them to make one game, they previously made 5.
And that's just how game development has gone, but
just exponential growth, yeah.
Square Enix back in the day making all those Final Fantasies, that was not normal to be cranking out so many iconic, high-quality games back to back to back to back, year on year on year.
Yeah, I think we're ignoring the FIFA series here, mate. They do get a game out every year.
What's your favourite FIFA game, Karl?
FIFA 2003, where Cristiano Ronaldo's speed was set to 110 and no one could catch him. So you could just run down the wing with Cristiano Ronaldo and score every time. No one could touch him.
I can't remember exactly which FIFA it was. I think it was maybe like 07 or 08 or something. And that was one of my favourites because there was basically a way that you could score from the halfway line almost every single time.
Yep.
You could just get used to the timing and the spacing of it and just start shooting from the halfway line and scoring goals.
Don't forget that FIFA where if you went into the quick replay and rewound as the ball went over the line and then rewound it and fast forward it, it counts as a separate goal every time. So you could like go into your career management mode and just win 100-0 in every match. Yeah, you could just win 100-0.
Oh, that's great.
And just get like a bonus for like goals scored from your club for like 8 billion. So yeah, just like Scunthorpe United is now worth the GDP of Moldova. Get wrecked.
Anyway, we're not talking about FIFA, we're talking about a different game beginning with F. Final Fantasy.
Fantasy 15.
FIFA Fantasy.
Final FIFA.
Oh no!
What's the way we can combine
We've
these?
just had the final FIFA.
Oh yeah, we have actually, yeah, because it's not going to be FIFA anymore.
Like, this is not going to age well, but yeah, FIFA and EA Sports are no longer working together, and then FIFA just went, we don't need you, we can make the best football game in the world.
You can,
but alright, let's see where that goes then.
Final FIFA Fantasy 15. There it is.
So Tetsuya Nomura, Mr. Belts and Buckles himself.
The villain of anime.
Served as the original director and character designer. And after a development period of 6 years, it was changed to the next mainline title in the series in 2012.
See, I really think, though, like the word original there is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Has that guy ever made... Like, they all look distinct, but after a while, they all blend into each other. Like, the guy's he's got a theme.
He's got a theme, and it's just belts and zippers. It's just the edge. The hardest of edges. And, hang on. Let me find my space here. Sorry, I'm just a bit tired today. So, Nomura was replaced as director by Hajime Tabata, and the game shifted to the 8th generation platforms, i.e. Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Due to the changes, the story needed to be rewritten, and some scenes and characters were repurposed or removed. The setting of Final Fantasy 15 was a fantasy based on reality, with locations and creatures based on elements from the real world.
Well, it's got a car in it, so yeah. That's the thing as well that really pissed me off as well. It's like it's a Final Fantasy game and I'm driving in a car. So I know, Cloud rides a motorcycle and stuff like that, but it's not the core gameplay thing, is it? And we know technology from our world exists in their world, but it's never front and center.
I don't know whether the car was a branded car or not as well, but it presumably was.
They had like cup noodle shit in that game, mate. There's an officially branded cup noodle outfit.
See, that's the goofy stuff I like.
I didn't mind it though, because cup noodle's actually really good. There's of all like the instant ramen brands, like cup noodle is like it's fucking top tier.
Yeah, anything's better than pot noodle. That's all I'll say.
That's the one.
Anyway, to supplement the game, Square Enix created a multimedia project called the Final Fantasy 15 universe because
they were all in, weren't they?
They'd spent 10 years making this game. They needed to get a bit of money out of it. And that included a few spin-off games as well as an anime series and a feature film. And you couldn't get this game out the door for 10 years, and then you decided the best port of call was to start making 5 other things at the same time.
That's not necessarily a bad idea, but if I recall correctly, is it Kingsglaive?
Kingsglaive is one of them.
Yeah, that was like the prequel film. And that, basically, if you didn't watch that, you didn't know what the fuck was happening in the game. Because it explained the lead up to the game. So
it explains the conflict of the world, doesn't it?
And that's why it frustrated me off. It's like, it's one thing to build this multimedia around it, but the fact that they just expected you to have consumed it. And of course you watched the film, right? You love our game. So I don't know if I love it or not. It's not out yet.
I don't mind when it's, we've got media that you have to have played the game. But the game was meant to be the main thing.
Yeah.
It's like, how have we got material that's necessary to start the game when the game is meant to be the main product, the first thing that you get into? And then the gameplay and story-based DLC was released between 2017 and 2019. I think they had like some VR stuff. They had an episode based on each of the 4 characters.
There was all sorts of crazy
bullshit. Yeah.
Don't forget the side-scrolling beat-em-up.
What?
They had the side-scrolling, like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World-esque beat-em-up that got cancelled or removed from sale.
Okay.
That also had story stuff that was important in it.
Of course. Upon release, Final Fantasy 15 was well received by critics. Widespread praise was given for its gameplay, visuals, and soundtrack, while reception towards its story and presentation was mixed.
Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah.
Oh, dear.
Not a fan.
As of May 2022, the game had sold 10 million units worldwide, making it one of the best-selling Final Fantasy games of all time. And that's just generally a lot of game series, as the word of mouth of the series spreads, and B, as just there's more people gaming.
There's more people playing games.
A lot of series just trend upwards and upwards.
There's a lot more consoles out there.
There is a lot more people playing games now than there were 20 years ago, yeah, for sure. And you can tell me that the PlayStation 2 is the best-selling games console of all time, but the other 2 consoles at that time weren't selling very well, and it was sold as a DVD player to many people. Yeah. So that's got a lot of caveats to it. So we'll skip kind of the combat and stuff, because generally it was just like, it was an action-based game rather than a turn-based game, but I just want to
mention that. Oh, I was going to say, if you're skipping all the combat stuff, because there is like one chief complaint about it I had.
Okay, yeah.
It's like you have to level up at campsites. You remember?
Oh, you have to... Is it Dark Souls-esque of going back to your campfires?
To level up. Which means that, grinding got even more annoying, because you didn't get progressively stronger while grinding.
You had to do the back and forth. I presume... Well, I mean, you wouldn't have known, I
think you could set up camp anywhere.
I presume as well that it was just... There's probably, Google early game grind spots, and there's optimum places and stuff. There always is in RPGs.
But it's just that thing of like, I'm grinding. It just adds like, because again, surely you want to sit down at the fire and spend some time with your bros, right? It's like, no, level up. We keep getting our ass kicked by this behemoth.
And then at the campsite, it's like making a meal and taking a picture of your meal and all that jazz, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take us to development. As I say, development began in 2006 and the game released in 2016. It's great. It was called Final Fantasy Versus 13 as part of the Fabula Nova Crystallis Final Fantasy, a sub-series of games linked by a common mythos, and ran in Square Enix's proprietary Crystal Tools engine.
Why have I never heard of this?
Because probably all of it fell apart or became different projects.
Sounds about right.
Because I can assure you that 10 years later they were not describing it as part of a Fabula Nova Crystallis Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was developed by the team behind Kingdom Hearts, which does make sense when it comes to the action-based combat and not the turn-based combat, for sure.
And the incomprehensibility of the story, and the fact that to get the full story, you've got to play like 3 different games, watch a movie. I think, like, as well, I don't think anything over top Drakengard, though, where you had to watch like a stage show that was only in Japan to get the full story.
Oh my god.
There was like I think it was something like that. There was like an actual theatre show that only aired once and you couldn't get DVDs of. And it had like critical story parts in it.
And this is where I kind of start to really have a problem with it, is that it was intended to be a darker entry in the Final Fantasy series than allowed in the main series. And we've seen this with Final Fantasy 16 as well, where it's a really dour Game of Thrones inspired world. Their words, not ours.
Yeah.
They said they were inspired by Game of Thrones, and it's all about violence and sex and murder and darkness, and everyone's are just a horrible human being. It's like, I don't want to exist in that world. That doesn't sound like an enjoyable time. Yeah. And I know that there's a lot of bad themes running throughout a lot of the Final Fantasy games, but in Final Fantasy VII, when you did have the world falling apart because they were stealing the Mako and you were playing eco warrior terrorists, like, at least you had like a dog and a cat in your party, and you were running around on chocobos and finding Moogles. And
one of my like favorite like series of reaction videos is, here's people who never played Final Fantasy VII before watching the cutscene of the plate falling in Final Fantasy VII Remake where Kate sits in it, and people are like, the fuck is that weird creature? The little cat goes down on its knees and starts beating at the floor.
That's exactly what happened to me, because I'd only played the opening hours of Final Fantasy VII, and I hadn't got to that point, so I, didn't really ever play 7 as a kid. Went back and played it as an adult and went, it doesn't quite hold up great. And then was waiting for the remake, because the remake had been announced for years and years. And then,
why not? Yeah,
I was like, why is this cat with a crown and a cape just like having this emotional trauma? I don't know who this is.
It throws off so people. You'll see them reacting to, oh my god, no, the plate, and doing that YouTube thing of overreacting. Then they see the cat, and then you actually see their true reactions because they're actually surprised. And like, wait, what the fuck's that weird cat thing? Because it goes down his knees, starts beating its fist to the ground. Like,
and that's
no,
the only time you see Kate Sith in the entire game.
It's so good.
But yeah, it's just, I am not a fan of taking what is traditionally a blend of serious and goofy and going, let's make this really dark and mature. It's something that I'm never really a fan of. It usually always ends up with entries in a franchise that are lower down on, my popularity list for me.
Generally, yeah.
It says the project suffered from a prolonged and troubled development, only making fragmentary appearances over the following 6 years. As early as 2007, the project's scale prompted talks of rebranding it as a next mainline entry. They already knew a year in, like, oh, we fucked up.
Yeah. They saw the sales of Final Fantasy 13 Part 3 and went,
did that not sell well?
I feel like they must have sold worse as they went along, right? That's like all sequels do.
But most sequels sell better.
Not when you get to the third one, especially when it's bad. Like Final Fantasy 13
Uncharted 3. I don't know. We'd have to look that up. That can be another wiki entry.
Yeah, it's not like we're on a page with Final Fantasy 13 on it like 800
but Karl,
times.
I've already gone over my allotted amount of time anyway.
Fair enough.
Not that we actually stick to that, but we normally give ourselves a guideline of like, try and make it like, half an hour or so, and we're like 30 odd minutes in already. So
there's just so much of this game.
There is a lot. And yeah, then, there was an internal unveiling of PS4 and Xbox One. So they decided to finally change it into a mainline entry, with a proposed PS3 version being scrapped due to technical troubles, and also just abandon the PS3. Like, if I was developing a PS3 version, I'd be like, get rid of that shit.
I don't want it.
Because the PS3 was just notoriously hard to develop for. And the game's engine also changed, shifting to the company's new proprietary Luminous engine. At the time of its rebranding and shift to the next generation consoles in 2012, Versus 13 was described as being 20 to 25% complete, and Tabata saying it never took shape.
Okay.
And when Tabata took over from Nomura, the entire development team was reshuffled and development started all over again. Although he worked as a co-director with Nomura until late 2013 to ensure the project remained as true as possible to the original vision, among the changes were the removal of the original story's opening and replacement of the original heroine, Stella Knox Florette. See, that's a Final Fantasy name.
That is a Final Fantasy name. Let's replace No, Clive.
With the similarly named Luna Freya. Again, another Final Fantasy sounding name. And the connection to the Fabula Novel Crystallis was also reduced.
Of course, there we go. That's why we've never heard of it.
Yeah, with branding and mythos-specific terminology removed to aid in the game's marketing. The thematic, aesthetic, and design elements were retained due to their core place in the world and backstory. The main concept behind Final Fantasy XV was a fantasy based on reality, as we mentioned, with the world being very similar to Earth and having fantasy elements gradually intruding into an otherwise normal setting. In pursuit of this, locations in EOS were based on real-world locations, such as Tokyo, Venice, and the Bahamas.
That's a lot. I just think there's so many words there just to say we fucking scrapped it and started again.
A lot going on.
Shit was whack.
Again, when you're making a fantasy game, I really prefer you to not just be like, well, it's based on real life, and then we added a few.
We've got real life.
Sprinkled some flavouring on the top.
So, but I want to see crazy bullshit that I can only see in a video game.
Mm-hmm.
That's like one of my favourite Final Fantasies is 10, because it has a fantastical element. Like, it opens in something akin to the modern world, like Zanarkand. Yeah, it has the big floating fucking water dome where they play like a weird sport, but you can look at that and think that's just a football stadium. It's a football stadium, they're playing weird fantasy football. But, you see a gleaming city lights that are analogous to skyscrapers, but then you get washed up, you're on a beach, and there's magic and demons and shit. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm in the same boat as the main character, like fish out of water.
Yeah,
if you got washed up and woke up on the shores of New Jersey, I'd be like, this sucks.
Yeah, I know that every single game obviously does take elements that look like they are from Earth.
Of course, there's always going to be some basis in reality. I think it was too much with this. Like when you're driving around in a car and you have to go to petrol stations, that's a key mechanic. You have to go to petrol stations in your magic Final Fantasy car.
Again, we've been a bit long just complaining about this game, but it says there's Final Fantasy 15 universe, where it's there's Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15, Brotherhood Final Fantasy 15, Monsters of the Deep Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 15, A New Empire, and then also a mobile version, which is Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition.
Which presumably no longer exists or is supported, meaning that entire
It's on the Switch.
It's on the Switch, okay. So you can see it.
But it is just a chibi version of 15. It's not any different as far as I'm aware.
Fair enough. In other words, like I said, there's the side-scrolling beat-em-up, there's the anime, there's the movie, there's the 4 separate DLCs. For one video game. It's why does this one video game expect me to do the research for a thesis?
And it's, again, presumably, because they were well, this thing took 10 years to make, let's double down and get as much as we can out of this one game.
Yeah. There's a lot of shit on the cutting room floor. Yeah.
And then, the game on Metacritic, it's the Xbox One and PS4 version, 83 for Xbox, 81 for PS4.
That's fair.
77 for the PS4 Royal Edition, and then 85 on PC. Presumably runs a little bit better there, but
the idea that the Royal Edition got worse
good,
reviews.
But not. Yeah, that's a weird one where the definitive version.
The definitive version, you think, well, yeah, it's addressed all the issues. It's got the final patch for all the gameplay quirks. I guess by that point, it must have got released a year or so later, and people were just not wowed by it anymore. They're not as willing to
cooled off on the fact that it was a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah.
Because it does often happen where people reviewing a game in their favorite franchise will give it a little bit of a subconscious boost in their head because it's their favorite franchise. I think
that's why like Famitsu always gives like Final Fantasy like near perfect scores every time.
This one was a 38 out of 40.
Yeah.
So presumably 2 people gave it a perfect rating and 2 people gave it 9 out of 10. And yeah, it happens with my favorite series, The Legend of Zelda, where, you know, Skyward Sword was a fun game with a lot of flaws, but it received like near on universal 10 out of 10 reviews at the time it came out. And some of those games do deserve, I would argue, Tears of the Kingdom, as far as I can, you know, myself say subjectively that I think it's up there as like a 96 out of 100 on Metacritic. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's fair.
But maybe Skyward Sword benefited from the fact it was a Zelda game a little bit. But yeah, it happens a lot, and it happens with Final Fantasy, it happens with Zelda, it happens with a bunch of just these iconic franchises, because people want to love the things that they love. People want their favourite games to be good.
Hey, I'm not saying that I wasn't disappointed. I said that I don't like this game. I didn't say I wasn't disappointed that when I didn't like it, especially when I spent full price on it day one, and I got 4 hours in, and I was like, I think I don't like this game. I was really gutted, because I was like, it's like the same thing happened with Final Fantasy 13. When I played like 8 hours and went, I think I don't like this. Nothing is gripping me here. And I love this series, what the hell?
But Karl, it gets good after 40 hours.
And I tried. I kept going back in. It's just like every time it fails to grip me. And I know that's a me thing, because I understand people. It did grip some people, but just didn't work personally for me. For the reasons I hope I've explained. I think that's a pretty reasonable one.
Just one of those things. When we talk about matters like this, it's very subjective, just because Karl and I both agree that it's not a Final Fantasy game that's for us, and there arguably hasn't been a Final Fantasy game for us in a while, it seems. Then it doesn't mean that we're saying Final Fantasy is now a worse franchise. It's just that it hasn't matched our tastes. And there is a Final Fantasy game that I have really enjoyed, and that's Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm really looking forward to the second one coming out next year. And
give me all.
I say next year. How long is that going to take to come out? We don't know.
Into my veins. Into my veins, mate. I can't wait. Vincent's coming. Knights the round, baby. Chocobos, Golden Saucer. It's all to come.
Because those are a lot of things that I'm aware of, but I've not experienced myself, so I am really excited to get to play it. But yeah, that was Final Fantasy 15. I know we glossed over a lot of the actual wiki entry there, but I just thought that
it's all DLC. If you want to actually hear the rest of the wiki reading, you've got to go buy. You've got to go pay extra for DLC in 4 months.
You got to wait for the royal edition of this podcast to come out.
Let's give you the Final Fantasy 15 experience and cut 40% of it out.
I hope that everyone's also watched the prequel movie to this podcast.
Oh yeah, all the Japanese exclusive mobile game release when we talk about it. Speaking of, that was a bad segue. I was going to try to do a segue into the ads.
You tried.
I tried. I'm not used to doing ad reads, mate. Come on.
We're not. And we don't even have ad reads to do. We just, we are making space, presumably for future.
This is the segue. So if you like this podcast and you think, hey, I've got something I'd like to promote to the people who also like this podcast, because clearly the people who like this podcast have all got good taste. They've got very discerning, excellent taste in large penises. And if you think that's the kind of person that you would like to advertise to, contact us at...
I just, because I was like, well, it's not just necessarily just people with penises. And then I remembered that time that you were asking me if, like, big vagina was a compliment.
Big vagina energy. What's that? I mean, like, it's like, big dick energy.
Big dick energy, but we need to clarify for anyone that doesn't know that that's what we mean there.
Yeah, when I say you've got it's like big dick energy. You don't necessarily have to have a penis at all. It's just like, you have the self-assured swagger and confidence of a man with a large penis. Likewise, small dick energy is someone who has the insecurity that bleeds through in their everyday interactions of someone with a small penis, and let's see, just colour every interaction they have with others.
Meant to be a term that's used to to talk about, like, your confidence and levels of swagger, not necessarily anything to do with your sex or gender, just to clarify.
Yeah, and where would people with the BDE, or wants to advertise to people with the BDE consume our content, where would they contact us?
They would probably not contact us because they'd be like, stop talking about genitalia right next to like the sponsor plug segment.
Stop talking about... The thing is though, that'd be so funny. Somebody said, no, talk about dicks more. Talk about dicks more, it's so funny.
If you want to contact us to talk about something like that, you can, find it in the description. It's wikiweekends@gmail.com. And yeah, I guess we've done a real bad job of showing why you should put a sponsor spot in here.
There's no problem, is it? It's all good. Are you ready to just move swiftly on to my wiki for this week?
I'm not, Karl, because we need to take a quick break so that I can go to the toilet.
Okay, no problem. I'll get myself a coffee then. I'll return with my entry.
Well, then, Karl, BDE and bad segues aside, I'll just mention, check us both out on Twitch. Okay. Our links are in the description. But after that, after you've gone and followed us both on Twitch and, helped us out, you can hear the second half of the podcast, and that's whatever wiki Karl has brought this week.
Yes, so before I go into my wiki, I need to talk about the wiki I got it from. And the wiki that I'm using today is the Transformers wiki, which is quite famous online for being one of the best wikis. Because I think it's still owned independently, or it's not like owned by Joe Fandom, who own all the other wikis and ruin them. But it's while we ran FactFiend, while WikiWeekends on FactFiend, it was the singular most requested wiki of like, go read out the Transformers wiki, go cover that. And the reason we never did that is, one, we don't really take requests, and two, it's so inside, like it's written by people who are trying to be funny. Mm-hmm. And not every joke lands. So I just want to clarify that we're not doing this because people suggested it. We're doing it because I stumbled across this particular entry while researching an article.
But Karl and I are both quite stubborn in the sense of requests of like picking something that we want to do, and then someone will request it and be like, no, fuck you. I don't do what you do.
I just don't want someone being like, finally you covered that thing I suggested. I know I stumbled across this while researching something else, but I am aware that the Transformers wiki has a pretty well-regarded reputation online, and part of that is why, because they try to be funny. And Lucas, you just want to guess, people who are super into something, that they make it their entire personality trying to be funny.
I'm assuming that it's going to be very inside baseball.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cringe. But the one that we're covering today, not so much, because it's a broader topic. And that broad topic is the many deaths of Optimus Prime. So just to start with, Lucas, how many times do you think Optimus Prime has died? So Optimus Prime from the Transformers series, of course.
I know that Optimus Prime famously died in the 80s to go and, spawn a new series of dinosaur robots.
Yeah, the Transformers, the movie.
Of course, yeah. And I don't really know how many other times, because I've not watched any of the new films. I don't know if, we're technically spoiling the new film or not. And I guess, by mentioning if we are or not, that's also a spoiler. So if you really care about not having the new Transformers movie, the new Transformers movie spoiled, I guess maybe you want to wait until you've seen it, but I don't know many people that are that
into it,
enveloped in that world.
Lucas, the Transformers are probably one of the most weirdly specific fan bases I've ever encountered. Because do you remember when we did a Wiki Weekends on Optimus Prime, and we got all the people being annoyed? We kept referring to him as a truck, and I was like, he's not a truck. He's got a lot of pathos in the original. So it's like, calm down. Yeah. It was a cartoon designed to sell toys. You liked it. That's good. And yes, I know they wrote comics and stuff like that. Calm down. It's just a comic book. It's just a movie. It's not a big deal. And the fact that we're making fun of it means that we like it. Because we don't talk about things that we don't not like on Wiki Weekends.
That we don't like, yeah.
Or if
it's it's just that weird thing, isn't it? Of people assume that we're trying to piss them off. It's no, we enjoy these things, and that's why we want to talk about them. And all I was saying is I don't know any Transformers fan of old Transformers that actually like the new movies.
Yeah, and it's just that thing of, it's like they appreciate something as such, or they've got such a surface level understanding of media criticism that they don't understand the concepts of being able to criticize something that you like. But to answer my question, Lucas, that I posed to you, I don't know exactly how many times Optimus Prime has died, but I'm just going to count
7.
how many subheadings we have. First, let's do that. So the number we have: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that's just in the Gen 1 cartoon continuity. But after that, we have 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And then there's a couple more. So he's died at least 30 times in the various incarnations in which he has appeared.
What?
So Optimus Prime has had nearly 30 or more than 30 canon deaths across the various interpretations of the character.
He's fucking Goku. Just getting resurrected with Dragon Balls left, right, and center.
Goku's died less times. I think he might be the character.
Goku's died twice.
Yeah. I think it's Jean Grey and him. I think Optimus Prime might legit hold the record for character in fiction that's been killed and brought back the most.
That's a lot. 30 times is a lot.
No, it's more than that. I didn't even get to the end of it.
Holy shit.
And there's not to mention there's a bunch of times where it's suggested that he died and he came back. But, just we have the intro to the wiki here. Across the various continuity, Optimus Prime dies a lot. This happens for various reasons. It allows him to be replaced by a new character, and thus a new toy. It allows him to come back in a dead body. Or it allows him to come back from the dead in a new body, again, a new toy. It allows for his corpse to look different, which, what do you think it means, Lucas?
That means a new toy, Karl.
Yeah, it can be dramatic, or it used to be. And this is where I kind of dropped off on this wiki of it's trying really. Here's the thing about writing jokes, folks. Not every line needs to be a joke. In fact, if every line is a joke, it stops them being funny. Because if you don't have time to set up a punchline, it stops being funny. But that's just me being meta. It makes him something.
Rule of 3 normally, isn't it?
Yeah, the rule of 3. Set up, punchline. Just basic joke writing theory. It allows for numerous memorials to be constructed in his honour. Although, curiously, sometimes they are built before he dies. But that's not after you've died for the 13th time and come back. It's not really being morbid, is it? It's more just a matter of practicality.
Yeah, we might as well just get cracking on with the new one. It's going to happen. Yeah,
it's like that scene in one of those X-Men comics where an X-Man dies and they're asking his daughter, you're not going to the funeral? It's no. It's you need to grieve, you need to process your father's death. It's why? He's an X-Man, they always come back. And then he comes back from the dead 6 months later.
Let's see. Just there you go.
He's he's not Uncle Ben, he's coming back.
And I do find it interesting as well because I remember hearing a quote from somebody that worked on the Transformers 80s movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they were well, I didn't realise that people were going to be mad that we killed off Optimus Prime. Yeah. It was just I was writing a movie where the sole purpose was to make a reason why a new generation of toys has to come into the mix.
Yes, I wrote an article about this very thing of the fact that it's not the writers. The writers knew that Optimus Prime was popular. It was the producers who said, well, we need to kill him off because we want to. It's we want to do a new series of Transformers with all new characters and and all new toys. Kill off Optimus Prime, but Optimus Prime's popular, and they were legitimately confused. He's a car. Why do people care? And they didn't realize that the writing on the show wasn't great.
Just a toy.
Yeah.
Why do we care? We're getting them new toys that they'll love, and it's but they people generated actual affection for these characters.
It's kids had formed an emotional attachment to Optimus Prime, largely due to the performance. I'm going to say of Peter Cullen. Of that voice. A lot of people say when they speak to Peter Cullen, he's talked in the past a lot about the fact that when people come up to him and talk to him about Optimus Prime, it's always he reminds me of my dad, or I didn't have a dad and I felt like Optimus Prime was my dad. He took on a quite fatherly role in my childhood of this figure of this stern guardian figure who's always fair. He's firm, but he's fair, and always encourage you to do the right thing.
And if you don't, he will slice many of you in half.
He will, yes. He will kick the ever-loving fuck out of you. And it says that nearly every major continuity has featured Optimus Prime dying at least once. Every single one.
Because that's the thing of, I think there's a bit of weirdness going on with the new Transformers movies where they are set before the other Transformers movies, but there's also like there's signs that it's a reboot, but also there's signs that it's not a reboot. And I want to say that they've already had like the Optimus come back moment in one of those movies or something.
Well, I think he always dies, and that's the thing. It's like it's not a surprise anymore that he dies, but initially it was. But like the most famous death he had was the Transformers the movie. But that's not the first time he died, because technically, in Gen 1 canon, as it says here, Orion Pax, which was Optimus Prime, before he became Optimus Prime, was killed, or at least severely damaged by Megatron, and was rebuilt into Optimus Prime. So technically, he died before he died. He
became Optimus Prime by dying and taking on a new form.
And that comes in like, the Christ-like figure. It's like the savior of the Autobots. He died and was resurrected, come back, to become the
I don't see any similarities, Karl.
I don't either. And then we have the Transformers, the movie. And it really pissed me off when it's called The Transformers, the movie, not Transformers, the movie. It feels...
It's because it's The Transformers TM, right? Yeah, and the trademark is specifically for The Transformers.
We have here. So this is the best known example in which Optimus Prime died of wounds in his battle with Megatron. And what makes this like so hilarious from like, a standpoint of looking back of, do you know how soon into the movie it takes for Optimus Prime to die?
I've never seen it, but based off that, maybe first half hour?
First half hour, yeah. He's dead within the first half an hour. He's the main character, dies half an hour in, and he doesn't come back. That's the thing,
that they've got to prove how cool the new characters are.
Yeah, well, that's what you think, isn't it? You think, if they're going to bring him back at the end of the film, heroically, and he doesn't come back. And there was like the article that I wrote about it, which will no doubt be up on Fact Fiend at some point in the next couple of weeks or months, is that like kids were just crying in the theatre for the entire like rest of the 90-minute duration of the film, just in tears because Optimus was dead. And they were like, the people who, like the producer said, we got letters from parents who were like, why the fuck did you kill this stupid robot? My kid's been crying. Do you know that meme of like, oh, thanks, kids crying? Fantastic. Kids, that happened.
It was the 80s equivalent of Pokemon the movie.
Yeah, where Ash... The thing is that Ash came back.
At least Ash did come back.
Imagine if Ash just turned to stone and that was the end of the movie, and it's just Pikachu just like going through the 5 stages of grief. That's what like Optimus Prime's death was like.
Oh, I kind of want to see that movie now, where Ash just never made it.
He never came back. And it says here, there is an urban legend that a lot of people remember Optimus Prime turning grey and then crumbling into ash, which didn't happen. And there are some urban legends that purport that was an unreleased cut of the film. And it's like, no, he just turns grey. But
okay.
Starscream...
I was going to say, in my head, he did turn grey.
He turns grey, but then there's a rumour that, there's an unreleased version where it's like more graphic. It's like, no, Starscream turns to ash. And people are just conflating the two in their head.
You're telling me that Starscream died? Was it due to betrayal, Karl?
Oh, I love Star. My favourite thing is whenever I do an Optimus Prime video, I always go get Starscream clips. And my favourite one is just where Starscream gets put inside a bubble and it goes, "Ah!" And that's just it. It's like my favourite quote. We have here the KISS players. Sometimes between 2005 and 2010, a character called Marissa Fairborn revived Optimus Prime using the Galvatron cells in her own body by kissing him. Ultimately, after all the cells were put into Galvatron, without them, Optimus Prime promptly died again. Season 3. He returned from the dead twice. First as a zombie, as part of her plan to control and destroy the Autobots, only to die again. Excellent. After regaining his his humanity through the sense of his romanity, I suppose. Robanity. He sacrificed himself to protect the Autobots. He was then brought back to life again by a scientist to help combat, and I quote, the hate plague.
The hate plague.
The hate plague.
That's a hell of a name.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, does Optimus Prime actually have any band names?
We're not talking about Optimus Prime specifically. We're just talking about his many deaths.
We
can click on his
Karl,
we can click on his
does
wiki.
Does he have any band names?
Do you want to get some band names? I can click on Optimus Prime's wiki page.
Because I know we've covered Optimus Prime once in the past, but I don't remember whether Optimus Prime has band names.
Well, it's just, we've not done.
There's been a lack of band names this episode.
Yeah,
Karl.
so we've not done many band names, have we? So let's go into Optimus Prime, Generation 1, Optimus Prime. The Transformers Wiki. Oh my. And this is why we don't do this, Lucas. We don't cover this wiki. It is There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, about 30, 40 subheadings covering everything from the Marvel Comics continuity to the Marvel coloring books.
Why Marvel?
Because Marvel had, the license to make the comic books. But that's the thing,
right, okay.
When I say people get into this, they get into it to the point where the sticker books have a continuity. And that's why we don't engage with a lot of these wikis in the same level of interest that maybe fans who would be willing to write and read about this stuff would want us to.
Yeah, it's similar to how we are big fans of DC outside of the movies, I guess, but outside of the new movies. But yeah, the DC wiki is just not very well written, so we don't cover it as often.
Mm-hmm. And there doesn't appear to be a thing specifically on this that just tells you what his names are. And that's why.
A shame.
Yeah. So presumably he has got some band names, but I'm not scrolling through 50 different subheadings to find them. So, we've he's died quite a few times. Let's go on to Generation 2, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
That sound good? So, Generation 2, Optimus Prime was fatally wounded by Megatron's fusion cannon, but was resurrected and evolved yet again, this time into Laser Rod Optimus Prime.
Laser Rod
Optimus Prime.
Okay.
Well, are you ready for the Marvel Comics continuity, Lucas?
I guess there's some bullshit then.
Well, this is how he does. So, Optimus Prime, after failing to live up to his moral principles while playing a video game, volunteered to be killed. So he volunteered to have himself killed because he cheated in a video game.
Get good, Optimus Prime.
Skill issue. They even launched his funeral pier into space. Fortunately, the creator of the video game said a backup copy of Prime's mind on a floppy disk.
What?
So that's the thing. Keep in mind what Optimus Prime is 1 million years old. Mm-hmm. With 1 million years worth of combat and life experience, and they could fit all that onto a floppy disk.
The thing is, you open up the packet and it's actually 64,000 floppy disks.
Yeah, when people try to run we got Doom 2016 on a floppy disk, and it's just it turns around and shows you the 300 floppy disks. We first met Virtual Prime 16 issues later. He got a new Power Master body 2 issues thereafter. However, the attempt at making Prime Virtual Body was a failure after the body spontaneously exploded.
I will say, I would listen to a band called Power Master Prime.
I'd listen to Power Master Prime. I'd listen to their album. About 30 issues later, he sacrificed himself again to defeat Unicron and died. However, his Power Master partner survived and then began to explain that he actually was the real Optimus Prime. This turned out to be true. And he metamorphosed into Prime with a new Action Master body.
And when we're going through all this, just remember, all of this is just for new toys. I get that people can enjoy it.
They like it,
not knocking people for enjoying it.
Of course we're not, no. I like it.
But it's so blatantly obvious when you're... Yeah, 2 issues later, new body. 2 issues later, new body. 3 issues later, a different Optimus Prime comes in because yep.
It's worth pointing out, Joe, when he killed himself in that video game, that was I think it's 8 years or something like that before he came back. So he killed himself for cheating in a video game. It's he wasn't done dying yet, though. In the G2 comics, he died after defeating the Swarm. The Swarm reconstituted him 3 pages later in a body based on his new toy. You said it, Lucas. Regeneration 1. Despite being possessed by the Dark Matrix, a wounded Optimus Prime was able to help Rodimus Prime and Circuit Smasher stop the creature's plan to spread across the multiverse. At the conclusion of the conflict, they bore witness as Optimus Prime died in his protege's arms in the Primus chamber.
Oh, yeah. And
so he just dies. He just dies all the time.
It does give me real vibes of, obviously, a very similar product and a very similar reason why that product exists, of just Power Rangers.
Yeah. Oh, no. Every time. The Power Rangers of they've all failed. Don't worry, we're going to regenerate you. We're going to give you new... All of our Zords got destroyed. Don't worry, we'll give you new Zords. New, more powerful Zords based on a new set of animals. Oh, that's awesome. Let's go fight them.
Remember the movie Ninja Outfits that they got for 20 minutes? Yep, that was just thrown in there.
And
just to get some Ninja Rope toys. I loved it.
And I love the Power Rangers. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to sit here and go when someone makes fun of that. You just don't get the deep lore. It's I know that there's law to explain that, but I also know that law was bullshitted by someone was told justify making new toys.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference here of like, I like Optimus Prime, I like the Transformers series, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's high art. But people do, and they get annoyed when you act like it's not. It's like, you can like something that's dumb, and something that's dumb can have good writing and artwork and stories and stuff that you feel attached to. But you can also just sit there and go, it's a little bit dumb in it. It is like, a giant robot truck shooting lasers at a planet size.
Which is awesome.
It's awesome, but it's still a little bit dumb.
Yeah. It's dumb and it's fun and it's great, and unfortunately it is there to just, just wring our wallets dry, unfortunately. But
it is, yes.
That's a lot of things in life, but doesn't mean we can't enjoy them.
Yeah. And it contains like all the comics and stuff like that. Is there any funny ones? There's a couple here where they just say like, oh yeah, just in his first battle in the IDW continuity, when Optimus Prime dies, Starscream was quoted as saying, "Optimus will be back. He always comes back." Keep in mind, this is after like Optimus has died like 15 times, so Starscream was speaking from experience.
Just Starscream knows that Optimus Prime's got a rotating door.
Yeah.
Just in that heaven.
So in his first battle with an all-13 powered Megatron, Optimus was killed, or at least his main body was, because he was downloaded. His consciousness was downloaded into a combat deck and then back again. He was able to survive, but being that close to death meant he existed in a limbo state, which made him noticed by Nova Prime in the Dead universe.
And I want to know now how many fights Optimus Prime actually is winning between each of these deaths, because it sounds a lot like the new villain shows up and murders Optimus Prime so he can become a new Optimus Prime.
The thing is, though, he barely ever loses. It's like, that's the thing. It's like, you go watch the movies. Like, do you know that bit in, like, was it the second live-action movie? Where, like, Optimus is, like, outnumbered by, like, 6 Decepticons, and he goes, okay, fine, and just kills all 5 of them in 3 seconds.
He just spins to win.
Yeah. He's unstoppable. Like, nothing can beat Optimus Prime.
Apart from all the times that he gets him.
Apart from all the time. But that's the thing, though. Does it make him more or less impressive that... would it be more impressive if he survived all of this and kept coming back? Like, still by the skin of his teeth. Or that he dies and comes back and still keeps swinging? Like, what's more impressive to you?
You can never stop him.
Yeah. What's more impressive or scary to you? Like, would you rather fight an opponent who's never lost a battle? Oh, sorry. What would you rather not fight? An opponent who's never lost a single battle? Or an opponent who's been killed by, like, otherworldly, godlike entities? Seemingly was obliterated beyond all recognition. And, like, seemingly just all traces of their existence were just removed from existence. And then they still came back. What's scarier?
I mean, that's the question, isn't it? Because I'd be scared, probably more scared to fight the first one. But then there's the idea that in the back of your head, that at some point he's always going to come back and rule your day.
Yeah, because that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, that the first one, he's going to kill you. The second one, well, he's been killed before, I could beat him. But that death has never stuck. And what's scary of, like, knowing, like, is that thing of, like, going into a fight with the first Optimus Prime is like, I know I'm going to die. I know that I'm going to... There's a peace in that. There's, like, there's, on some level... You can, like, learn to accept that. The second one is, that's, like, basically hell. Because, like, even if you win, he's coming back.
You just got a constant just anxiety in the back of your head of this ticking timer that you don't know how long it's going to be. But, at some point, he's going to come back and kill you.
Yeah, that's it. At some point, he's going to come back bigger, stronger, with a laser gun and blow the back of your head off. And, like, here's the thing I wanted to cover, though, Lucas, because... merchandise. So Optimus Prime, and I think this is just so reflective of just how brutally mechanical and efficient the process is of just merchandising the Transformers. So even when Optimus is dead, he doesn't even get the dignity of rest. It's like, no, we can turn his death into a new product to sell. So it says here that you'd think that when there's a new Optimus body, usually coloured black or with battle damage, means another toy to sell, even of a dead Optimus. However, the amount of dead Optimus Prime toys is lower than one might think, compared to his myriad of different demises. Probably due to the fact that one reason for his death is to allow other toys to spend some time in the spotlight. However, there are several, variants of traditional Optimus Prime toys showing him with, the black coloration or the faded grey coloration. So you can pose a dead Optimus Prime and have him in your house.
Yep. And then there's also times where, as far as I'm aware, I've only heard this from the new movie, but there's a character called Optimus Primal for the Primal Beasts. And it's that's their version, which is fantastic.
It's a great name, Optimus Prime. And he's just a big gorilla. It's Gorilla Prime.
And I presumed that was taken from the comics and the TV show and stuff,
But here's the one. I think I had that toy as well. I had, the Gorilla Optimus Prime. It's super sick. But, Lucas, this is what caught my eye. Notably, in the Magic the Gathering Transformers collaboration titled Universes Beyond Transformers, the Optimus Prime card embraces his tendency to fall in battle, having him able to return to the battlefield in his vehicle mode should he die. So if you can make a Transformers deck, and if you kill Optimus Prime, he just comes back.
And I can't remember exactly what it was, but I'm pretty sure that the Transformers fans, all the Magic fans, were mad at the Transformers Magic the Gathering.
Are you telling me that Transformers fans got real salty?
I can't remember what it was even about, but maybe it was just that the collaboration existed. But I know that Magic are doing so many collaborations now that a lot of Magic the Gathering fans are like, please just stop.
I think it's kind of cool.
I think it's cool, but that's as a person who's not involved in the Magic community.
Yeah, for me, the fact that they're collaborating means that they're not owned by one company yet. And that's my cynical way of looking. It's if you have Magic the Gathering collaborating with Transformers, that means it's not owned by the same company, because that's why it's interesting. You got two companies to actually shake hands on a deal.
And it's
it's just another sign there are big companies out there who are owned by Disney.
At the moment, and Karl's frozen for me.
And just that's the many deaths of Optimus Prime. And for all the fans of Transformers out there, we are aware that this is a wiki that you like because it's funny. It's not funny to me.
Just want to clarify. You froze for me, so apologies for us talking over each other.
Oh, okay, my bad. I was going to say, so that's the the many deaths of Optimus Prime on the Transformers wiki. And just to clarify, I'm aware it exists. We've covered it, and we covered it not because it was suggested, because I stumbled across it while researching and thought that the content was interesting. I know that it's funny to you. It's not to me. So I know there's an entry that's written entirely as it rhymes. It's isn't that interesting that the entire wiki entry rhymes? It's no, that sounds insufferable and exhausting to try and go through.
And it's almost the exact opposite to why we thought Wiki Weekends was a good idea, because we found it very interesting in the way that Wikipedia not writes itself, but is written in such a plain, informative way of speaking, and it says so many things that are really silly, but as a matter of fact. Yeah,
so we can clarify that the reason Wiki Weekends exists, and the idea behind it, as Lucas said there, is the way Wikipedia and wikis in general are written is usually very matter of fact, which means when you say something like Optimus Prime has died 36 times, it's very funny because of how clinical that's written. Something very absurd or silly or outlandish written in such a clinical manner, that juxtaposition is rife for humour. Whereas when the thing you're reading is trying to be funny, it's very hard to riff on that, because you try to riff on someone trying to be funny, which feels either...
It leaves us very little room to wiggle. And to, as you say, riff off. It's it doesn't provide a very good platform for us.
Mm-hmm. Although I will say, because I know the Dust Loot Wiki. This is a deep pull. The Dust Loot Wiki is a wiki for fighting games, specifically covering fighting game moves and move sets and frame data. And I just... A lot of it, it's most of it's very informative, but usually the character descriptions are quite hilarious. Of the pros and cons of picking a character. And I always remember the one for Captain Ginyu in Dragon Ball FighterZ. It says pros, great mix-ups, almost unlimited combo variety. And then it's cons, difficult to use. And then the last con is just very very unfair fighting 5-on-1. And I just thought, so you read a list of pros, and just that at the end really cracked me up, because they managed to have the self-awareness and the just the wherewithal to not put a joke all the way through. It's like they just save it right for the end. So it takes you off guard instead of trying to have a joke for every single line.
Yeah.
I always remember that like very dishonourable to fight 5-on-1. And that just cracked me up.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because Captain Ginyu actually never is seen fighting at anything other than 1-on-1.
No. But I just thought that was a funny way of putting it. All the other ones.
Oh, yeah. But it's just funny because, like, Captain Ginyu, obviously, to incorporate the Ginyu Force, because they all only have, like, kind of one gimmick, it's, like, hard to make an entire character based around that. It's like, yeah, I guess Jason, Berta, and, like, they have one move that combos together, but, you know, they don't have much going for them, so it's like, let's just cram it all as Ginyu Force, the character.
I just want you to, like, use that as, like, an example of, like, it's a similar thing where they, you know, have a few elements of humor in there, but the reason the humor works there where it doesn't in this wiki, at least in my opinion, is that the humor is very, very sparsely put out throughout. So it takes you off. It takes you off guard. It catches you by surprise. Whereas it's like I said, like I was having to like paraphrase almost every single line because almost every single line has some like you can tell this is one of those wikis that it is constantly being edited by people think I can make it funnier.
Mm-hmm. So this is our roundabout way of saying we'll pick what we want.
Yeah,
like you don't need to suggest things in the comments because we will either A, not pay attention, or B, actively be less likely to choose it.
Like I said, it was difficult to go through, so I had to keep going through like the bad jokes that clearly someone thought was hilarious. Like, like the inside baseball stuff of like, referencing stuff from like other media. It's like the whole point of a wiki is to be like, a broad overview that anyone without the prior knowledge required to explore the universe.
And again, the one thing we do find interesting in terms of suggestions is like telling us what wikis are well written and well researched.
Yes.
That's one suggestion we appreciate because we can, find actual entire wikis to start trying to read through and find what we want to talk about within those wikis.
Mm-hmm. She's like,
but when you just like talk about Starscream, it's like that's not very helpful.
But if you say like, hey, this wiki is like, like last week we covered like the Bones wiki, like the fact that exists and is like, it's not like we did one for Fact Fiend like a year ago now, like the X-Files wiki, which is like really well researched and like has all the dumb stuff in that you'd want.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, but speaking of like, leaving something in the comments, rather than complain about us not talking about Transformers or laughing as hard as you thought we should, why not? Let us know which wiki won this week.
And Karl, we haven't had a theme for a while.
We haven't, no. So should we like say next week's podcast should be a theme?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so what would you like the theme to be?
Have you got any ideas off the top of your head?
What's coming out next week? Let's have a look. Is there anything coming out soon? Because we do have. Oddly enough, if we've done the Transformers on this, I said the Barbie movie comes out, we could have done like toys. So that'd have been a good excuse to do. We could have done like Transformers and Barbies or G.I. Joes and Action Man or something like that. So should we say toys maybe?
Toys sounds like a fun one, yeah.
Should we try and do that?
We'll keep it as pretty vague of
pretty
just
broad,
like
yeah.
Toys.
But for next week we'll decide vague but toys that from our childhood. But that's like kind of. We know that we're going to pick something we've played with, but just for the audience, like it's going to be toys that we're aware of, that we played with.
We are 90s kids, early 90s kids, so just that's the kind of time period we're probably going to be exploring is like late 80s or early 90s or something around there.
Mm-hmm. But maybe we can find something around that, so Action Man, G.I. Joes, like Barbie. All that good stuff.
Don't worry, I'm already getting ideas in my head, Karl. Don't worry.
There we go. So next week, you can tune in for our toys extravaganza. And before we go, Lucas, just speaking of inside, super inside obscure jokes, I just want to get your reaction to something. So do you remember when Pokemon Scarlet and Violet came out?
Yeah.
And do you they had a couple of really broken Pokemon?
Yeah, of course.
So did you ever see how they announced that Houndstone was being banned from certain tiers, the justification? So bit of background info here, new Pokemon game came out. There's a forum called Smogon where they have one of the generally accepted as one of the foremost places to get just information about competitive battling.
It's where the competitive community generally like centralizes around.
Yeah, and like they have tiers of like Pokemon, like Ubers, overuse, all that good stuff. But the justification they use for not allowing when they like a new generation comes out, they're like, okay, we're not allowing this Pokemon into this tier. Here's our reasoning why. Like, it's too powerful, its moves are too strong, like its stats are too high compared to like other things in the tier. This is what the justification they use for Houndstone.
Okay. Karl just giggling to himself. What is it, Karl? I need to know.
Well, can you see? I just sent it to you on Discord.
Oh, you sent it to me. I thought you were going to read it.
No, I sent it to you on Discord. That's the only justification they posted. I never remember to put images in the podcast, but describe.
Like, it just says, this dog is fucked up, bruh.
It's just a picture of a black and white dog. And that was the only justification they put for not allowing it into a tier, and nobody argued with it.
Because it had one tactic that was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like, this dog is fucked up. We're not letting it in this tier. It's too strong. It's nice.
I thought you were waiting to explain to me.
No, that's like the people that clicks. Okay, why is
you were
Houndstone
just giggling because it was too funny?
Why is Houndstone not allowed in this tier? It's like, this dog is fucked up, bro. We don't even need to explain it.
Everyone just went, yeah, it is pretty fucked up.
It's like the one, I think it was like Lab Coat 21. Like when it came up with like pros and cons or like weaknesses, it's like strengths. Like for people who don't know, Dragon Ball FighterZ Lab Coat 21 on release, best character in the game. Without a doubt, hands down, best character in the game. Had every tool available to like the best characters, plus several more they didn't have, like that were unique to her. And then on the weaknesses thing, he just put perfect queen has no weaknesses. Because she didn't. The character had no weaknesses whatsoever. I thought that was funny, but
I've got something else that's fucked up for you, Karl. Did you know that some people that watch this podcast aren't subscribed?
Are they not subscribed?
And they should go do so.
That is fucked up, bro.
That is fucked up, bro. So go subscribe, like, comment, do all your jazz. Let us know which wiki won this week, and we will be back next week with a toys-based episode for you all to enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for watching.